Hello, selectors, and welcome back to the LifeBurst podcast. We're going to be going over the Fisone Diva Centers, and we're going to start out with Donbano. Denonbu. That's what we're going to go with. I couldn't find a good pronunciation online for this, so if you guys are a fan of this and actually know how it's pronounced and I'm saying it wrong, put it in the comment down below. We're going to start with Akino here, and then we're going to go over all of the centers for this one. Akino is kind of an interesting one because it's specifically for this tribe. And let me just go ahead and pull it up. It's also a Fisone Elrig, right? It's the white Fisone Elrig. Now all Fisone Elrigs share something similar, which is that you have a action exceed 4. You can reveal up to 2 Fisone magic crafts, which are these spells, with different names, one by one, and add them to your Elrig deck. Okay, this makes the Elrig itself quite flexible in terms of what it can do, with the downside being here is that Akino being a Denonbu specific Elrig kind of pigeonholes it back immediately into this specific tribe. So it's, I think if you like this anime or whatever this crossover is for, this is a I want to say exceedingly mid build. I think it's still good. I think it can win you some of your locals, but I don't think it's going to be like game-shakingly good or anything. But let's explain what the Fisone magic craft spells are. We'll do it once here, and then I'm going to assume for the rest of these deck creation videos, you guys watch this one and know what we're talking about, which is that, so you get access to these different spells here at the bottom, right? And each of them have a unique effect, kind of associated with their color pie, but without actually having to cast the enter of that color, right? Like this one, for example, costs just colorless, right? A single colorless. So it lets you blend the color pie a little bit even more than you normally can do in Wixoss, which you can do quite a bit. And it gives you access to certain effects that you might not normally have. It also means that your turn 3 is going to be basic. Your turn 3 and turn 4 are probably going to be perfect turns, and then these Elrigs are going to lose a little bit of luster as the game goes on because a lot of their power is set up in their flexibility of the spell itself. Now that we've explained sort of that Elrig type, let's go ahead and go over each of these. The first one gets you a guard for a single enter. The next one gets you lets you vanish something that is power 12,000 or lower for a single enter. The rest of them are free. So free blue is that it lets you draw 3 and then discard 2 from your hand, so it's filtering. Same thing here with green. Lets you enter charge 1 and then you can grab a Signy from your enter to your hand. One of the more powerful effects that you can do in Wixoss. And then the last one is free. It's the black one that allows you to give something negative 8,000 till end of turn. All of these are very good effects. They've got different times where they're useful. Generally speaking, the white one to get a guard is good against the aggro decks. When you're going against the discard decks, right, these sort of allowing you to fill out your field Signy are quite good. The blue and the green ones are good in those scenarios. When you're trying to counterclock something, maybe you're trying to get the push to the end game, that's when your red and your black ones are going to be really good. Rule of thumb, that's basically probably where I would decide to start with it. Now, we can talk more about Akino's specific abilities for this Denonbu tribe, which is that at the beginning of your attack phase, if there is a Denonbu Signy on your field, you get to draw a card. So it doesn't have to be all Denonbu, right? As long as there is a single one on your field, you get to draw a card. The problem with that is also that Denonbu doesn't really play well with the other Signy. It's fine, you can do it, but they're often asking for multiple Denonbu on your field or in your enter, as we've seen with Desona Signy. That usually means that you're trying to at least make 3/4 of your deck that thing. I will straight up say this deck is not full of this tribe. I had to supplement some stuff from other cards because the Denonbu themselves don't quite have game-ending effects on their own. Outside of that, you also get the action, which is that you can target one Denonbu on your field and it gains plus 3,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, which means that you can buff a 3k to a 6k. That's a good metric. And you can buff a 12k or a 10k up to 13k or higher, which means that it can dodge some other effects. Those are really the two use case scenarios with it. And then, of course, you can get your Fisone spells. So where did I go about building this one? Because I went kind of there when I'm building decks. I usually can either go Elrig, okay, cool. This gives me an idea of what I want to do with like the whole thing. I build out my Elrig deck according to the idea that this Elrig has given me, and then I fill out my main board with all of the things that supplement that. Right, that's my preferred way to go about it. I don't think that's possible here. It's so wrapped up in the Denonbu that I think you have to start with the Denonbu Signy themselves. And so what I did is I pulled up all of them and I went through them one by one and basically made a list of Signy I really liked, Signy I thought were pretty average, and then Signy I didn't like. And I didn't obviously put the ones that I didn't like in there if I could help it, but I just did that simply to see what colors they were, right? Like that's the first thing I wanted to do was do it, see what colors they were, see what kind of effects overlap. And what I found was the Nambu that I liked, generally speaking, were ones that that gave me resources and then used those resources to open up lanes. I don't. There's not like a ton of identity in the Denonbu where they're doing a lot of cool stuff that's not unusual in Recross. It's pretty bread and butter. You enter charge, or you get enter and spend it on lane opening, or you get cards and you spend it on lane opening. With a small caveat being there's a little bit of a discard theme in the Denonbu. I thought the blue ones were pretty good. So it ends up being, okay, so I'm opening up lanes and I'm making the opponent discard a bit. Okay, that's pretty classic tempo. With the red, I thought being better than the other colors options for this. I don't think there was a black option, if I can remember correctly. So basically, I made this main deck first, minus the ones that are non-Denonbu, because I wanted to see what in essence they do. So let's just go one by one as to like the four ofs, I guess, is where I should start. So like this one I think is the most powerful one. It's a level 2 white Signy that says at the beginning of your attack phase, if there's another Denonbu Signy on your field, you can target one level 1 Signy on your opponent's field. You can put one Denonbu Signy in from your enter zone to the trash. If you do, you can bounce it back to that opponent's hand. This is just Toto, right? Like we know Toto is incredibly strong in the virtuals deck, so we already know that this power level is very, very high, right? Not only that, it can be flexible in terms of its enter cost because it can be any of your Denonbu Signy. So that was my first four of. I followed it up with this. I thought this one is also very good. Again, hallmark of something we already know, which is Firecracker. At the beginning of your attack phase, you can target one of the opponent's Signy with power 5,000 or less, and then you can discard a Denonbu Signy from your hand. If you do, you can just vanish to the Signy. Boom, we're already off to a pretty aggressive start. I've got a level 1 that can vanish up, right? Like it can vanish level 2s. And I've got a level 2 that balances level 1s. I'm already at a point where I'm opening a lot of early game lanes. Where do I supplement this with? Okay, cool. So moving right along, we've got a blue Signy here. I liked this one quite a bit. It says at the beginning of your attack phase, you can target one of the Signy on your opponent's field. You may discard 3 cards, which is hefty, but it doesn't have like a limit, right? So it does actually support the other cards that I talked about pretty well, because since it doesn't have a limit as to what it can get rid of, what it can vanish, it can vanish anything, and that's pretty good. If you discarded 3 Denonbu by this effect, your opponent has to discard 1 card from their hand. I actually liked this. So discarding 2 to vanish any Signy and discarding 1 to make the opponent discard a card is on rate. All of those together is quite expensive, but theoretically on rate, right? But The problem is now I definitely need to have cards in hand, right? So like not only am I discarding 1 to the level 1, I'm also discarding 3 to this. That means there needs to be, I'm already figuring out there needs to be some kind of draw themality in this deck in order to maintain the pace. Looking at some of these other 4-ofs, we've got this one, which is when it attacks, you can discard a card level 1. When it attacks, you can discard a card from your hand. If you do, the opponent discards 1 card from their hand. All right, cool. That's like our Monument replacement. We're pretty on board to get some kind of tempo deck going now. When you discard a card from this effect, if it's a Denonbu, you can pay 1 if you do draw a card, right? So this also then converts us into being able to basically be flexible with the cost. We can either pay an enter, or we can just straight up discard a card, right? Again, we're probably going to discard the card more than anything else, but I like this. This gets us on rate at this point to keep going. I put down another 4-of here, and this is our level 1. When there's another Denonbu Signy on the field, all Denonbu Signy on your field get plus 2k during your opponent's turn. Again, we know that this is pretty good from virtuals, so this is kind of already headed into a more discard-esque virtuals field, and I don't mind that so much. It has a good life burst that can stop some damage. This one also has a life burst, right? Draw 3 cards and discard 1 card from your hand. So this one's not the greatest life burst, right? It's basically a draw 2, but it does allow you to refill your hand. This deck is going to be a little hand hungry, so I don't mind it so much here. With the last one being a 3-of to me, let me just grab this. Oh my god, there's so much. Let's stretch this out a little bit here so we can get that in a better way. Okay, this has got a lot of text in it. Constant other Denonbu in your field get plus 2k during your opponent's turn. Cool, allows you to be a little bit more annoying wallish. Auto at the beginning of your attack phase. If this Signy has 15k power or higher, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck. This Signy is always going to have 15k power, right? Aside from other pumping stuff you have in it, Akino pumps by 3,000. That's the right number, right? They made this for the combo. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you can reveal 1 Denonbu Signy from among them, add it to your hand, and then put another one from among them into your enter zone. And then you put the rest on the bottom in your deck in any order. So, and then life burst, target 1 up Signy on the opponent's field and put it into the trash. So basically, this is reading already as like this enter charges you 1, draws you 1. It's not. I've seen a lot of Japanese lists and some American lists that people are putting where they're putting this as a 4-of. I actually don't like this as a 4-of. I think this helps you supplement your boards and supplement your resources to keep you going. But like, I want things that push the game forward on level 3, and I don't think this necessarily puts you in a winning state. The more I read this, the first time I read it, I was like, whoa, I could enter charge 1 and draw 1. That's a lot of resources. And then I kept thinking about it being like, yeah, but it doesn't actually do anything. Like, you have to do other things to make this good, and then this needs to be on the attack phase, which means that you can't just use it and get rid of it. And like, so there's a lot of things going with it that I don't necessarily like. Like it takes up a lane, it takes up a space, right? And our space is limited now. It's still good enough to be a 3-of. I think you're gonna want to, have white in your deck to grow Akino, but also I think this this checks the box as like getting you supplies so that you can do more with your supplies, but not necessarily a game changer. Those are the main Denonbu Signy that I've got here that I'm showing off that are like these are the most powerful. But let's see what we also filled the rest of the deck out with. The first one here is a level 1 that says at the end of this turn, if the Signy is up, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's Denonbu Signy, you get to draw that card. The reason why this is a 2-of is because I just needed to fill out white. I gotta be honest with you, it's there to fill out white and it has the tribal it has the correct type. So that's no bigs for this one. I don't love this one. This is going to be enter most of the time. There's a 2-of on this level 3. I like this level 3. I think it's expensive. Auto, when this attacks, you can target a Signy on the opponent's field with power 8,000 or less, and you can put a Denonbu Signy from your enter zone to the trash, so you can pay 1. If you do, you vanish that Signy. Okay, 8,000 is not that impressive. We're getting similar stuff elsewhere, but yeah, this does in a pinch to open up lane if you need it. The main thing is at the end of your turn, if there is this is not the main thing. If there's a Hina and a Shinan, you can in your trash you can enter charge 1. I wish, right? I wish. I don't actually think I have only one of those things. I didn't like the other one in there, and I wasn't gonna waste slots on a combo that wasn't gonna happen. So I just didn't put it in there. The big thing is though you can pay 3 enter, which is a ton, don't get me wrong, and this Signy gains double crush. You're really only gonna gain double crush once per game. So it is a large investment, but not the worst investment. Like you could have worse uses for your enter. I believe I also use a double. I use a double one stop for this, so you should have some enter to spare. Is the idea here? So that's there. Then another 2 is this one. When the Signy attacks, you can discard Denonbu from your hand. If you do, you get to draw 2 cards. This is basically just draw, right? We needed more card draw. This acts very similar as Yabanda is in the like Dishonor decks. So this is just helps fill out our spaces with that. And then that is all of our Denonbus. What did we fill out the main deck with other than that? Well, the first thing I did was put some Exias in it. I mean, I like Exias. That's always a fact. But the fact is, since I already knew I was going to be pretty tight on enter, that means I couldn't necessarily defend myself with 3 stops. And as such, Exia is a pretty good way to stop that. Any deck that I think is weak on defense but needs it because I'm spending the enter, I end up thinking about an Exia or 2 for that. The other thing that I filled out some stuff here clearly with, was Servant, because you need Servant, but was a Miracle Draw. Again, I think you need cards in hand for this deck to function. I think this is a good way to do it. We don't have an exceed cost as far as I remember in here, so this helps hit that kind of thing. And then 3 Random Drain. I like Random Drain. Yeah, you theoretically could use extra, but I would be scared too because I think you can't cast your Fasona spells if you do that. So I decided to go with the Random Drain instead then. So that's where I ended up putting my spell slots too. And then at the very top here, I put in a Orochimaru. I don't know. I needed another white. I needed another level 3. This felt like it gets me back a guard. It feels like that's probably something pretty good for this deck to do. I don't. This also is a theoretically, you might still have a bunch of extra cards in hand, especially if you're not up against any discard stuff. So this is another discard outlet that can help you with that thing. So I think that's pretty okay there. Now I'm thinking, okay, I need a ton of draw, right? Like we've clearly hit the fact that I can't spend much enter because my main deck is going to be using a lot of enter, and I need a lot of card draw to fuel their effects. That put me pretty quickly in a camp of I want to probably be double blue, right? Because double blue gives me access to Summerlies blues, which is kind of, it's a little enter intensive, but it does the job very well. Bottom deck something, well, and like we said, this deck probably needs some backing with, like, it can kill small things very, very well, so it probably needs some more ways to kill bigger things. So we've got Summer Lives Blues for that, to draw some extra cards. An Unknown Memory, I think in this deck you will probably use the Draw 2 and Enter Charge 2 function often. But, I mean, in the times where it doesn't matter, you have the Vanish, and the Vanish is always good. And I think Double Blue is one of the only times that you can get away with doing Unknown Memory and it feeling pretty successful for that. And then as far as the Elrig deck goes, I knew I wanted to double one stop because I just I didn't expect us to have a lot of the 3 stops have a discard cost associated with them too, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Madoka Float is a good one. Madoka Dub fills our hand back and is a quick way to keep going, plus supplements our discard package a little bit here. I think it needed a little bit of supplegating. Tamago Beating I think is actually underutilized and is pretty good. I don't think we need the draw functionality. Again, I think Summer Lives Blues, Unknown Memory, Madoka Dub helps fill out enough card draw, plus Float and Jet Stick that we should be good, right? I think we should be good as outside of Akino as well. So I think this is going to have a ton of cards in hand. Then you should be able to use weaponize those cards in hand. So I like beating there. I feel like it helps you get some early damage. This deck has really only 4 Signy that open a lane, and now with the Desona, I'm sort of like spoiled for choice, and I'm like, I want 6, 8 level 1s that open a lane. Without that, I think you need I think you need to go back to olden days where we definitely opened up a lane with one of our assist Elrigs. And then Jet Stick down something of your choice, and then with a colorless draws you 2 cards. I think you naturally will have enough enter to pull this off. I think this deck is pretty good. However, I will openly admit that this is a lot of theory crafting here. I'm not interested in this type of deck anyways, just because it's not my favorite type of deck to play. I think it's got too little of design space on this type for it to be really worth it. But I know some of you guys are stands for this, and you guys might want it. I think this is at the level where I would say it's good enough that I wouldn't be ashamed to play this at my locals anyways. No Japanese list or American list looks like this either. So I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong here, but this is like where I'm looking at a gut trying to make this work. This is sort of where I came up with, and I think I had solid reasoning starting kind of instead of top down, I started bottom up and built it up so that way I thought it had the best effects for what it was, and then I just filled in the holes with the things that I think support it. Let me know if you guys like this type of deck, and if you guys are looking forward to playing this type of thing, and also what the crossover does. I didn't research it enough. I think it's idle anime, but let me know.